Hi, I'm Paul Kautza. I'm the Director of Education for the Data Warehousing Institute. We're here at our San Diego Conference and Executive Summit, and I'm here today with Ralph Hughes, who is the Chief Systems Architect at Ceregenics. Ralph, you've been in the Agile space for some time and working in the Agile environment, and as a matter of fact, you wrote a book called Agile Data Warehousing in 2008. And you and I started working together probably about 18 months ago when we started bringing our first Agile classes to TDWI and true Agile methodology. And if you remember back then when we started asking how many people are actually doing an Agile project, the percentage was pretty low. And we did our first themed conference last here in San Diego called Building Your Agile BI Environment. And it was very well attended, and that percentage went up some. I was a little shocked when Ken Collier did the keynote this Monday, because the theme of this conference, again, is evolving your Agile BI environment. And when Ken asked the question, how many people are actively doing Agile projects, over half the audience raised their hand.
Right.
So we've got a pretty good ramp here going with this. So with that, I just kind of get your view on where do you see Agile today? Where do you think we are today?
Well, new ideas spread out through the society in predictable patterns, and one of the models that we have for that is the innovators who define the technology, and then the early adopters who actually start implementing it in real world situations. And the third beginning phase is then the early majority who widely implement the technology once it's been well defined and there's a great number of practitioners available to support it. I think that we are finishing up the innovator stage. We've figured out about 95% of how to adapt a Agile method such as Scrum or XP to data warehousing, and we've actually worked out about 90% of how to adapt our project relationships with some classic departments in IT, such as the project management office or the program management office. So we've worked out those really bad, tough kinks, and we're ready to now spread the technique and the approach to a wider number of projects.
Terrific. And if we look at traditional data warehousing, traditional BI, there's been a lot of finger pointing between business and IT and who's doing what or who's not doing what, or what the communication cycle is. What do you see as some of the benefits to the business community of embracing an agile methodology?
Well, I know firsthand the benefits that the business can see, because what my company does is do agile turnarounds for DWBI departments that are starting to lose their internal customers. And when we go in and do a pilot project, we get direct feedback from the business. And what they tell us once they have experienced an Agile project is they like, of course, the increased productivity that they get out of the development team. But more importantly, they like the responsiveness, that they can provide requirements and then see them added to the production schedule in a 3 to 6 week time frame, instead of having to define their requirements all up front and then be locked in for the next year and a half. They feel like if the business changes, then the IT department building the warehouse, they'll change right along with them. And so they feel that the risk of these data warehousing projects goes way down. You do not have to forecast perfectly what your business is going to need a year and a half in the future. You can tell IT now, this is what we need right around the next corner, and IT is now working with a method where they can be responsive to that and get that new source, that new target online and under your fingertips of your users to yield benefits within a 1, 2, 3 month time frame.
And I think that one of the things we were talking about is it's been difficult historically to get the business actively involved. And talking about why the business should care, or why they should demand an Agile approach. If you were going to go in and talk to just the business users, what are the 1 or 2 things you'd say, here's why you should demand Agile?
Okay. Number one is that responsiveness, because we are in an incredibly competitive and environment now, and we have increasing globalization. There's no way business itself can stay static. So you need an IT department, a DWBI department that's going to be able to change directions as fast as your business requirements will change directions. The other thing is that the Agile approach lowers the risk of your project, because you give the IT department a sketch of the functions you need, and then every 2 or 3 or 4 weeks they're bringing you a demonstrable increment of value, an enhancement they've made on the data mart or the data warehouse. And from sitting in the business seat, you can say, I can see that this data warehousing team is performing. They are matching my requirements. And in fact, they're showing me results in a steady stream. I'm starting to learn a lot about data warehousing. I can now give them better requirements. I can better express what I need, because I'm getting a really rich education through this process of working with them.
Very good. And we talk a lot about Agile and about how Agile will get you to your end result quicker, more efficiently, less cost. Where does Agile get its speed from?
I think that's a multifaceted answer that I'd have to give you. The ones that come to my mind at first is the fact that Agile puts not only the business in close collaboration with the development team, but it puts those developers in close collaboration with each other. We try, if we can, to establish a war room setting that everyone can work eye to eye and in real time. And so when developers or the people upstream from them, such as analysts or modelers, have a question, they don't have to sit down, write an email, or call for a meeting and then wait for the meeting to occur to get their answers. They can just say, business partner, what did you mean by this term that you gave me? Systems analyst, what did you mean in this line of the source to target mapping you just wrote? They can get their questions answered real time. But and on top of that is that with that easy accessibility to each other, we find that we no longer daisy chain all the roles of defining projects, from requirements to design to target models to ETL specs. We don't link them together end to end. We start overlapping them. And as you bring those work efforts and overlap them, you compress the time that it takes to go from an idea, business concept, to a design and a spec. And also, you've got 2 people working together on that concept. You get better quality out of that. There's fewer mistakes. We have to do less rework on the specifications. We compress the time, and we get higher quality direction to our developers. So I think those are 2 great places that Agile picks up its speed.
Terrific. And one of the things you talked about there is the collaborative nature, the integration of the teams. There's still a lot of companies out there that have remote teams, remote workforces, virtual teams that are scattered geographically fairly significantly. How can teams like that be successful using Agile?
It is possible. In fact, it's done frequently. It adds an additional challenge to the process. Generic Agile says, put everybody in a war room, let them work eye to eye. However, the real world, we have our developers and our subject matter experts spread all over the globe. So we have to invest some upfront effort to make that work. And there's a couple of techniques that I see used over and over again that prove very successful. Number one, bring the whole team together into a warm room setting for an iteration or 2. Let them work 4 to 6 weeks together and really learn each other as individuals that they know and see and can envision in the future. They'll learn each other's sense of humor, each person's strengths and weaknesses. They'll understand how they express themselves when they agree, how they express themselves when they disagree. All that kind of knowledge of the individuals you're working with is essential to have. And then when people spread to the corners of the globe and they become just a voice on the conference phone, you can fill in all that background material and really understand what the person's saying and understand what they're not saying. It lets you be a more effective team on a conference phone setting. But the familiarity will acquire by working together for a few weeks will erode over time. And so I think another technique that's very important is to bring individuals back to the war room setting once in a while, maybe every 3 or 4 iterations. Bring them back in town, and you don't have to bring them back in for the full iteration. Bring them in for the top of cycle, which is the last day of the iteration you're closing up, and the first day, which is a lot of planning, of the iteration you're going to start. So if you can bring them back occasionally for 2 days at a time, you'll keep that familiarity that they'll depend upon. And the last thing is, I think there's some technology out there, what they call it remote presence technology, where you can put a webcam on everyone's computer station so that you can see their faces, and you can give them a better quality microphone. And at the facilitator's console, they can assemble all those images into like a Hollywood Squares display, so that, and push that back out to the team so everybody can see everyone's faces when they're doing their daily check-ins. The advantage there is that when it becomes Susie's turn, the moderator or the facilitator can turn off everyone's mic except Susie, so you lose all that clutter that you get on the conference phones, and then she can give Susie's image more real estate and reduce everyone else's image, and that galvanizes people to look at the person who's just been enlarged on the screen. But it allows the facilitator also to keep watching all the individuals through her console, and she can see who's not listening and kind of zing them and say, well, Paul, what did Susie just say? And that only has to happen a couple times to develop a good discipline among the team, so that everyone does come to that quick stand-up meeting or check-in, daily check-in, and they really listen to each other. So bringing people together so they learn each other, bring them back occasionally so they keep that familiarity, and then getting something better than just a conference phone. Those 3 things, I think, make remote teams possible.
I think that's very good advice, very sound advice. It's a discipline. It's something that, as everything else we're doing, you have to be disciplined about your approach, and and even more disciplined when you're trying to bring teams like that together.
Yeah.
And I think based on what we've seen, at least seen at the conferences and the increase in the classes, and now you're teaching 3 full days this week, and you're doing my Thursday keynote for me. You also spoke at the Executive Summit, and we have other Agile classes going on. I think we're really starting to see a very strong foothold of this process. And just trying to get a brief view from you of where do you see this going over the next 3 to 5 years? I
believe that we have some significant challenges still to overcome, and in the next 3 to 5 years I think we're going to find solutions to them. One of the challenges that I see is, how do you pull multiple Agile teams together and let them work on their individual projects, but have all those projects integrate into something greater than the whole? I think we are searching for a mechanism through which the enterprise data warehouse will emerge from the Agile Data Mart project. So this whole notion of emergence, we've started discussing it, we've started understanding some of the dynamics, we understand some of the things that we can do to make that more likely. We're going to discover several more over the next few years and be able to build those into the method in the project room level. So I think that's one thing we're going to do. I think we're going to see technology kind of catch up and start supporting us more. I think that, for example, right now a majority of data warehouses are built using relational databases, but we have 4 other data modeling paradigms out there: columnar, associative, entity, attribute, value, and the one, I forget the 4th one. But we're starting to see tools that can bring that in mainstream and support large volumes of data in these different formats, and they actually are faster to implement target schemas with than the relational model. They're a little young now. There's a lot of competition there. You don't know which products to go with, perhaps, but that layer of our industry is going to gel, and then they will actually be able to augment the Agile tech methodologies that we're using. The last one that comes to mind is just data modeling techniques in themselves. Right now we try to build enterprise data warehouses using a relational or relational model, and then we project the data to a star schema. There are other techniques such as the hypernormalized modeling techniques, the anchor modeling techniques, that would let us build a backbone and get that right, and then let us add new tables attributes on satellite tables that allow us to let the Agile teams fill out the ribs of, say, like the fish skeleton. We, the enterprise level, will just create the backbone, and then the individual Agile projects can add the ribs to the skeleton. This is a new approach. There's some rough spots to it, but it feels like that's going to be a solution.
Terrific. Well, I think we're going to have some growing pains as we go forward through this, but I think we're on a path with Agile that has really got traction, and I really think will help organizations be successful in their data warehousing and BI environments. And I really thank you for your time.
Sure.
It's Ralph Hughes, author of the Agile Data Warehousing, and I'm Paul Kautza with TDWI. Thank you very much.